Hello and welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token Podcast, episode 35. And I've got the cold.
I was really wanting to interject in the midst of your sentences. Do you want me to do it, Chris?
I actually probably should have let you do this one. I'm probably not going to... I'm going to do a lot of talking in the video game section, I think, but probably not the board games. I'm going to let you deal with that.
You're going to give the video game section a load of gob.
Yeah, I'm going to spend the board game section just recovering.
Right. From that intro.
From that intro.
The enthusiasm you managed to muster up there.
Well, my name is Chris, and I have the cold.
I'm Euan, and I'm coughing all over the place.
I'm Pawel, I'm trying not to catch any of that.
Oh, well, you're sitting in between
Good
us.
luck with that.
Damn it.
Not much luck. We are a gaming podcast.
I'm a plague carrier.
You're a what?
A plague carrier.
A plague carrier?
Yeah.
I don't know what you said there. I thought you were for some reason, I had an image in my head there of you carrying some sort of card that had Blade written on it or something like that.
Blade?
I had Blade, like a blade carrier.
You thought I was a floating carrier.
This is my delirium from this cold. I think that's what's happening here.
I think this is going to be an interesting episode.
I think so. I'm gonna start talking about a game that doesn't actually exist, I think.
If he falls asleep and starts hallucinating, let's just let him carry on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, aye. That'd be great.
Aye.
Great material.
Groundbreaking stuff for a podcast.
So yes, we're here to talk about gaming. We talk about all sorts of gaming, from board games to video games to role-playing games and so on and so forth. I think this episode's going to be a board games and video games as usual heavy episode. Pawel, you're a resident RPG expert.
Yes, thank you very much for providing me with the window to fully... That never happens.
You've got a couple in the last few weeks.
5 episodes
we've been
ago.
Quite good to you.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I think it was 3 episodes ago, actually. Maybe 5, actually.
You're
maybe
just
right.
forgetting because we've had Christmas. There's been a break.
Yeah.
It's fine, that's fine.
Have you just been having episodes going on in your head?
I come here
which
every
we
time.
still don't let you speak about.
Every time with these bags full of RPG games and stuff like that, and you just point at me and laugh is what you do.
That's nothing to do with the RPGs, man.
Okay then.
You bring in physical copies of PDFs.
Oh yeah,
it's enough to turn your stomach.
That was a weird day. Let's not talk about that episode.
Let's not. Yeah. I know. I'll shock myself.
Right, so let's just fire straight into this, Euan.
We're going straight into some board games.
Yeah, we'll talk about some board games. So
we did manage to get in a couple under the wire last night.
We did, and I'll introduce this first one, and then I'm going to let you talk about it because this is one of my Kickstarter acquisitions. Another one. So this is Cavern Tavern, which is a strange dice placement game using worker placement mechanics but with dice, and this is by Final Frontier Games and designed by, now I'm not entirely sure where these people are from, but this is definitely some Eastern European stuff going on here. It's designed by Wojciech Krustewski.
Oh, come on.
I think John Voight
is the pronunciation. Pawel, you're...
Hey, Pawel should be able to do this. I don't know
was
why.
Was that a reasonably...
I'm gonna say that looks Serbian.
It looks Serbian?
I don't know. Well, it's not Polish.
Possibly.
In any case, that does sound like something Euan would enjoy. I came to associate Euan as such with worker placement for some reason.
Yes, I do like worker placement games.
Okay, well, tell us about Cavern Tavern then.
Well, it's a very different worker placement game, but it looks and plays basically like your general sort of Euro getting resources to achieve various things. The setting is it's a cavern tavern, really. I mean, it's some kind of pub for it,
yeah, it's a fantasy pub.
It's a fantasy pub where you're serving weird drinks to
fantasy people.
Yeah, your orcs and elves.
Not your fantasy people.
No, like people.
Not Sam Fox in the 80s.
You've just made up. You've got 4 people sitting around a game board and they're just making up stuff in their head and completely ignoring each other.
No, that's Pawel playing RPGs.
Right. I see.
That's how it works. Yes.
So yeah, you're just taking orders in this pub and sort of getting the ingredients needed to make the drinks and then fulfilling the orders, and you're constantly sort of being worked over by your evil boss, Nasty the Dwarf.
Nasty the Dwarf, yeah.
Alright, so you're not you don't run the place, you're just like waiting.
You're an employee.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I guess the objective of the game is as the way to like get as much done as efficiently as possible without annoying your boss or having to even really deal with them.
My understanding of working in F&B business is a quick rotation, try to make as much money as you can on tips.
Well, that's basically, you don't make tips.
Yes, but they have kind of simulated that with this game though, because the longer it takes for you to create the drink for the customer that you're serving, the less money you get.
Alright.
And it's all about, like, the money that you get is basically your points.
Yeah.
That's essentially what this is.
Well, you have like this little, essentially I'm assuming it's your opening hours.
Yeah,
and this you have this clock at the start with 10 spaces on, so it starts at you start at 10 and it goes to midnight or 10 past.
It goes to 1 o'clock in the morning.
It goes to 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, 10 rounds at 20 minutes.
Drinking up time as well.
I don't know if they call last orders, but
they just tell them to naff off. So yeah, you play through these 10 rounds, and like if you take an order on a certain round, you place a marker down on that one, and as the clock moves forward, you can see how many rounds it's taken you to.
Because you can only have one order at a time. Is the thing.
Yeah. And if you basically at the start of each turn, if you don't have an open order at that time, you have to take a new one. So you're always having to have one on. So you're not going to get through the game without losing points at some point, because essentially, anytime you have an open order on at the end of a round, you will go down a sort of your game board has, or your sort of player board has 3 tracks. Pardon me. And one of them is basically the nasty your boss's track. So he gets pissed off at you every time there's an open order that's not been fulfilled, and you're going to get, as it goes down, there's a sort of negative number on that, and at the end of the game, whatever one you're on, you're going to get that deducted from your final score. And there's also spaces on there that basically, if you hit them, you have to go and speak to Nasty, and he gives you some task to do, and that messes up your round basically.
Yeah, and it played a big part in your game, because there is a thing that you can do while you're playing the game that, like, basically you go and talk yourself up to Nasty, but then give somebody else, like, say, like, oh, here, Nasty, that Euan character, he's shit at his job, and then you have to go down on your Nasty track thing, and then that could end up locking you into having to do a nasty task.
If you're just hovering above one.
Yep.
That's a neat mechanic. I like that.
That's interesting. I mean, for a worker placement game, it's got a lot of very different things to it.
We need to talk about the actual worker placement side of it, because it's all about rolling dice and matching up numbers, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's that's the kind of the odd thing about it, because you don't just have your selection, or there is a real element of chance to it. So yeah, you have 4 dice. You roll them at the start of the round, and there'll be various spaces around the game board that will let you kind of take the resources. I'll say ingredients. Let's not generalise again. We're talking about Euro games.
You do like to do that. You like to strip it back to the bare bones.
You know what we're talking about. It's breaking down story, and everything's just one thing. So yeah, you get your various ingredients to make the drinks. There's cellar spaces, and they're numbered 1 to 6. So that's pretty simple. If you've got the corresponding number on your dice, you can place one on one of the cellar spaces, and then take that ingredient. Then there's other sort of spaces around the place that generally require like a combination of dice, most of them because they're generally above 6, and they're sort of they're basically doing tasks around the bar. So like one of them's like kitchen tasks, one of them's cleaning tasks, and if you do any of those, there's two tracks for them as well. So one for the kitchen tasks, one for the cleaning ones. You'll go up on those tracks every time you do one of them, and you'll get more points for sort of completing them in future. Because you'll get whatever ingredient and then
that's
an amount of points, and sometimes if the higher value ones there'll be some extra thing like you can take an extra resource and trade it.
And that's one of the more interesting things about this as well, because it is something you do have to make that decision between, do I want more ingredients because the ingredients are 1 to 6? Do I just want more basic ingredients without getting any sort of special abilities or points?
Because they're cheaper to pick up.
So you could use four dice to get 4 different ingredients, or do you go for those numbers that are above 6 and then do the kitchen task or do the chores and then you still get an ingredient, and the ingredients are linked to the different numbers, so there's really 2 different numbers that you can use to get an ingredient. There's one between 1 and 6 and one above that. But then you'll also get points, and you'll also get, maybe you can steal an ingredient off somebody else, or you can swap one with their bank, essentially. And all these different things. And I found that was the way to go. I did spend a couple of rounds just piling up ingredients when I had some of those big orders, but I found that towards the end of the game, when you're moving down the kitchen tracks and the chore tracks every time you do those, you move down the thing and you start to get bonus points.
You get really big bonuses.
And I started getting ridiculous bonuses. Like when I started putting 18s down onto the kitchen tasks, I was scoring 10 points.
You were just jumping ahead that. And every time.
That was just like more effective than taking another order that round and trying to complete it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you don't take them at all, you do just fall behind. I kind of went for going for sort of completing as many orders because I was just really worried about this constantly like losing points essentially. So I was trying to like sort of make sure I had the ingredients. I was just doing that the fastest and easiest way possible. Unfortunately, it just never really came to get in those spaces. But
I think the thing is, we played a 3-player game of it, and you and Dave essentially just like went for each other with the nasty space. Because we
just kept on putting each other back up and down the same, so we weren't really achieving anything.
But you were burning up dice just to try and piss each other off.
Yeah. And I was like, we should be doing this, should be happening between all of us, because you're all going to lose points. It's pretty much guaranteed. I don't see you somehow getting through that game, fulfilling an order every turn and then not having an open one at the very least.
Yeah.
Or somebody just bad mouthing you.
And there's the other space. There's the Wizard's Workshop, it's called as well. So you can get items and stuff out of that. And the item's just a separate deck of cards. They're just like they give one-off abilities.
Bonuses.
I didn't really go for them. I got one item which was completely useless to me because of the character I had. What were the things that you had?
I had a bunch of stuff. Like one of them essentially let you use any ingredient as whatever ingredient, as another ingredient essentially. And there was one of them, I think, allowed me to place down, because the way the round works, essentially, you take your order and then you can place a dice, but you have to then, for each space that you're going to occupy, you go around the table and you do it in order.
Yeah.
And I had one that let me basically place all my dice down first so that I wasn't blocked out of anything, which was quite useful.
And also the Wizard's Workshop gives you magic potions.
Yeah, which count as any ingredient.
Yeah, count as any ingredient, and they're really useful to have.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a load of dice sitting about that you don't know what to do with, you can't get the ingredients you want.
Well, that was what I found.
It's just like, use the Wizard's Workshop, get a magic potion or something, get an item.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how did you feel about this game?
No, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure about it to begin with, and obviously dice are always mistrustful of dice. But it was like a good twist on a worker placement mechanic, because it felt really like a worker placement game, but the way it played was something completely different, and there was a lot more, a hell of a lot more constraint on you in terms of like what you could get done. It was meant to be challenging, I think. But yeah, just and the kind of adversarial thing of like I've not played many worker placement games that have that.
When you're just like you can just screw other people over because of the limited spaces on the board to get ingredients and all that sort of thing. Because I don't know if you noticed, but I spent a lot of my time just looking at what numbers you guys had rolled and then being like, well, everybody's got a lot of 4s here, so I'm going to put my 4 in early and get that space because that means there's only one more space left for somebody else to get something, and then everybody starts swearing at each other.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, the space is really limited, and it would be more so in like a 6-player game because there's only like 4 spaces among 6, where we only was like one of us would get locked out.
That's right.
But there was a lot of just like things like that. the nasty track or whatever, and the kind of like bad mouthing each other. That was quite a unique element to it, and it felt like the whole sort of theme worked really well for the way it was actually done. You wouldn't have expected worker placement games. They generally go around sort of like larger scale ideas where you're building a town or a civilization or some kind of thing. I just had no word. I just had to flap my hands about for a bit.
Something a bit more epic
than just working in a bar.
Working in a bar.
It's interesting seeing it applied to this sort of like a smaller theme.
And the artwork in this game matches up with the theming of it. It's just a bit silly cartoon.
Oh yeah, it's a daft game.
But I mean, it seems that there's like they seem to have created some larger world to go with this. Pawel, you'll be pleased to hear that they have created a story of the 5 realms.
Oh wow!
And I'm assuming they'll make more games based in this world that they've created for Cavern Tavern.
And is this the first one that they've ever?
I think this is the first one.
The first material of any kind.
I could be wrong.
Seems strange to come up with a bar and then extrapolate an entire world out of it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah.
But I'm wondering if they've come up with this world and then went,
"Oh, this is something we could do."
Here's a game that's set in this world.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just having a quick look. I can't see anything first glance here. Yeah, this is Final Frontier's first game.
Okay.
So there's no other game set in this thing, but because they've got in the back of the rulebook there, here's a story about the 5 realms.
Right.
I'm assuming they're probably going to do something more with this. And this was quite a successful Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it made a decent amount of money and stuff and got a lot of backers. So it seems to be quite a popular thing.
They've delivered.
Aye, and it's not a heavy game. This is a pretty light game,
we
but
played it pretty quickly, and it was.
There was quite a lot of actually just people sitting going, okay, right. I've rolled this, so what am I going to do with this?
Well, working out what you can sort of pick up. It is one that really forces you to just be thinking all the time, kind of.
Yeah.
Planning a lot of struggle.
I should probably say as well that there is this Kickstarter version came with an expansion.
Right.
Which adds in a whole other thing to it. We didn't play with that expansion, so we're not going to comment on it. I've had a quick look at the rules, though.
Was it food?
And it looks... No, it wasn't food.
It
was more about...
You're supposed to be able to eat in pubs. I've not been...
It depends on the country.
But this game is only about booze, yeah?
This game's about booze, but it's fantasy silly booze. I mean... You know, it's
contains
drinks
rocks.
That are called things like the Orc's Finger and stuff like that.
Excellent.
That contain rocks. It's
cool.
silly. It's silly stuff. But this expansion's all about secret meetings going on in a back room somewhere, and you've got to like serve these people drinks and stuff like that. And it's Nasty's wife that's running the thing, and Nasty's wife's the only person that Nasty's scared of, so she sticks up for you. In this expansion, so she's a good ally to have in this little expansion thing. So like I say, we haven't played it with the expansion, so we're not going to actually comment too much on it, but that's what it involves. It looks quite interesting. So yeah, that's Cavern Tavern by Final Frontier Games, and Wojciech Krystewski is Macedonian. Yeah, so it seems it's a Macedonian game. But yeah, they've come through with this one. I actually quite enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to playing it with a lot more people. I think it's going to be so much more chaotic.
Oh well, yeah. any worker placement game is always classic when you've got that many people that no one can get anything that they need.
Funny,
that's the dream.
That's the way you play it.
Very recently, I've seen, although it's probably been there for quite some time, a game on Steam that was really just a pub simulator in some sort of cyberpunk setting. So I do.
That sounds amazing. Is it VR?
It's the sort of thing that you would expect.
Can I actually just sit with a can of lager in front of me in real life, put on this VR helmet and just sit and get pissed in a cyberpunk bar? Because that'd be fucking amazing.
I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's gonna come here, yes.
I'm well up for that. Game developers, if you're listening, this is what I want.
Pretty sure there's people out there just doing Sims in VR.
Right, let's move on then. So we played another thing last night. Weirdly, it's the Power Grid card game.
Yeah.
Tell us about that then, Euan, before I lose my voice.
Have we talked about Power Grid on this?
We haven't talked about Power Grid on this.
Because I think certain elements of Power Grid are probably going to come up just talking about this.
Yeah, because this game is basically Power Grid without the map.
Yeah. Travel Power Grid.
It's Travel Power Grid.
You know, it takes the basic concept of the game, tweaks a couple of things in an interesting way, but essentially it's roughly like the basic Power Grid game, if you're not familiar with it.
Some of us aren't, but I have a feeling that what you're just gonna say is that the theme is you're some sort of power plant worker.
Well, you're not you're more in the management sphere.
Yeah, you control a company, a power company, basically.
And in the original
fascinating
sort of board game,
it's German.
It's one of the classic German, just the Euro game canon. There's you have a map of Germany. There's you can reverse it if you want to play Italy.
This is classic Power Grid you're talking about.
I'm talking about classic Power
Grid.
You're talking
about classic Power
Grid.
Grid.
And you basically you're sort of trying to connect up to various cities and power as many cities as you can with bigger and better power plants. Essentially, Power Grid, the card game, does a similar thing. Without, like as you say, without the map, it's just the case of buying the power plants and they power a certain number. It tells you on the card for the power plant like how much you get for powering that.
But are we talking like coal, solar, wave?
Yeah, there's you have. I'm trying to think what's actually in the card game one. So you've got your coal because they've added in something as well.
Yeah,
so
because the original Power Grid's got coal, oil, garbage.
Oh. Yes, that's
and uranium. Is it just those? Is it the 4 resources that it's got?
That's fairly straightforward.
I thought this has got 4 as well.
It's got 4, but they've replaced the garbage with natural gas.
Yeah.
Because
they're all into fracking now.
Aye, it's all about the fracking.
It's all about that fracking.
Why do we always get political?
Because we like because we want to see burning tap water.
Turn on your tap. Turn on your tap. Flames.
Don't light a tab anywhere near your sink. So yeah,
we got a bit off track there.
Aye, well, you've got your resources in Power Grid.
You've got tap water.
Aye, tap water, from which is extracted natural gas. And so, yeah, you a big thing in sort of Power Grid board game was the kind of the market for these resources to power your power plant. And that's kind of where they put a lot of the focus in this game, I feel.
Yeah.
You've got the sort of auctioning, the buying of different power plants is roughly the same as it is in the board game. You have 8 of them out, a top row of 4 and a bottom row of 4. The top row are available, and then the bottom row is like the futures market. So you can kind of see what's in the deck at that point. So you can bid on anything in the top row, and you start. There'll usually be a sort of a value on the card as sort of meant to be a starting asking price that you would initiate the bid at, and then you go around the table and everybody bids on that one. There is a thing in the card game of having you have like a 1.
Yeah.
There's a little 1 token, a little green wooden 1 token.
The lowest numbered power plant that's on the table has a 1 token on it, and it reduces the starting bid to 1. I think the reason for that is that because the money doesn't get as out of hand in the card game as it does in the board game. Because you find that in the board game that the money is a bit more like, oh, I fueled this thing, this fuel only cost me 6, but I'm getting $42 back off of that or whatever.
But you start to build up a bit of a profit, yeah.
So because I found it in this card game version that it was more like, the first few rounds of the game we were only starting each round with like 10 or 12.
It kind of encourages you to spend your money and just constantly develop, because it's less about sort of building that empire and just sort of powering what you can. So yeah, you'll have on the power plants that you see there's the value that it will power for, so there'll be an amount of electros being the currency in Power Grid.
Yep, classic electros.
The good old electros, and you've got your value of how much resources it takes to power that plant.
Yeah.
Now you do have renewables, so you have like wind farm things, and they don't require any resources to power, so they can be quite valuable if you can get them at a reasonable price, because they'll just sit there for ages and earn you money. And yeah, after you've sort of all done your bidding and everybody's bought a power plant, or not, as the case may be in later rounds, when you can't be bothered and there's just nothing but rubbish coming out. And they do sort of, the game speeds that along, and it does that in the board game as well.
Yeah,
you will take things out that have been, if something hasn't been, the lowest value one's taken out, the highest value one's taken out and replaced with something else from the deck and all that sort of stuff. So it keeps it moving. And then you've got you move on to the sort of resource buying.
And this is kind of, like you say, this is kind of the main part I found of this.
Yeah, they
this
do seem
card
to
game
put a lot
version.
of focus on it.
It's almost like the power plants were just kind of like, this is just the thing to get you to buy the resources.
Yeah.
Because that's the interesting part.
Well, I think it's almost like something that... Because it seems like with this card game, they've kind of tried to address certain things with the board game that maybe needed a bit of work, or were sort of like, because the resource market in the board game is something that almost feels like it's one part of it, but it's like it doesn't feel that important. But it's like it is a really interesting.
It's
once
really
you kind of
important.
get how it works.
It can affect like your decision on what plants to buy, and it does in this card game version as well. Yeah. Because it's all about supply and demand. I mean, they've managed to like simulate supply and demand in both this and the board game version. I think the board game version does it more sort of. It's more complex in the way that it does it.
But essentially, what they've done is they've sort of worked out. So you replenish in the board game based on there's a grid.
There's a fun table at the back of the rule book.
Everybody loves a spreadsheet. So yeah, you kind of with the card game you actually draw resources at random, and there's on the card it'll have the sort of the top the highest value on the card is what it starts at, and you'll deplete that as necessary. So generally they go up to a maximum of 3 because it's just sort of on each side. And yeah, you've got 4 spaces for sort of the value of the different resources, starting at 1, which you don't actually place anything on. That's just for like
that's a bit weird. So the
leftover ones from if you buy too much, because you can only store basically
twice the amount. So if you've got a coal power plant that needs 2 coal to power it,
you can store 4.
You can store 4 coal on that power plant.
Yeah.
But if you take 5 coal, you can't store that extra coal. You have to put a single, which is like, it's an extra card that comes from the side of the board basically, and you put a single coal into the one column, so somebody can buy that for 1.
Yeah. But
so
they
sorry.
No. With the cards, I mean, the way that they sort of set it all up, it's sort of they have kind of like, they've sort of worked out a supply and demand thing for that by sort of having preferential order in how the cards move, because you basically set up this 3x3 grid with the ones furthest to the left that you look at being the lowest, so it goes from 2 to 4, it's 2, 3 and 4, and yeah, you have like at the end of each round you have to do this really complicated. It took me a while to work out what you were doing.
I'll explain this because I think it was me that was doing this.
I think I eventually did get it.
Yeah. So like you say, there are 4 numbered cards. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's 4 columns basically. Now you put these resources out, and what happens is that in each column the coal goes to the top, and then you've got the natural gas, then you've got the oil, and then you've got the uranium.
Yeah.
Now you're not going to always find all of them in those columns, obviously, so you might have 2 coal in one column and then like a natural gas and an oil. And you arrange them so that the coal's always at the top. But then when people are buying those things up, when it comes to the end of the round and you have to move things across and then get new cards, so you move things from the 3 column into the 2 column first, but you move all the coal first, then you move the oil, the natural gas after that, and you move the oil. So you're always going to find that like coal's going to become progressively cheaper if people aren't buying it.
Yeah.
And it's going to become much cheaper, much quicker than anything else.
We had a situation that happened, and it just took up most of the.
Well, it was the natural gas in your game, and that's what ended up winning the game for me.
Yeah, because
I bought a natural gas plant because I was like, well, there's so much natural gas sitting there that's cheap as chips.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to be able to buy all that natural gas up, and I'm definitely guaranteed it. So that's what I did. I ended up winning the game for me. But yeah, that's how the resources thing works, and it's quite. It's strange, but it really does kind of simulate the board game version.
Yeah.
Not quite as complex. The board game version, I think the board game version is a bit more straightforward in that you're just depleting the resources from left to right and then restocking certain values. And they get more
expensive as they.
It depends on what point in the game you're in and stuff like that, and blah blah blah. So that it's like things like, I think coal is really cheap at the start of the game, but then garbage becomes cheaper in the middle and all that sort of thing. It gets a bit
people don't
gets a bit weird. But
yeah,
and uranium gets cheaper as the game goes on. So there's not a lot of uranium at the start of the game in the board game version, but towards the end there's much more of it.
Yeah,
and they've kind of simulated that a little bit in this, but it's much more random, I would say, in this, because it's really just dependent on what card you're getting out rather than anything else.
And there's a smaller resource pool essentially, so you're kind of with Power Grid the board game, Power Grade. I'll play Power Grade in my.
That's Euan's weird outburst for the day.
Yeah,
I
sorry.
think I should try German because the game's German.
Yeah.
Ich spiele Power Grid
What?
Excellent.
in mein Gazebo. So
Is gazebo a German word?
I don't know. It was originally I was going to go for gazebo for the Texan dude, but obviously, like if he's German, he's still got a gazebo.
Right.
You've changed the accent, not the person.
Right. Thanks, Euan.
So anyway, the Power Grid is I've completely lost where I was on about. So the resource market, you're less likely in the board game to completely run out of a resource, and generally everybody's going to be able to power what they can.
Well, it does happen.
It usually more comes down to like lack of money than just it not being there, which is what happened in the last round of the game. Which I don't know. I just don't think I've seen. Maybe with uranium possibly in the board game. Because that can happen if everybody goes for uranium.
If somebody in the board game version, if there's a couple of people take uranium plants early in the game, then that uranium's just, you're never going to see it.
It's more about
going to be
pricing
expensive.
people out of it in the board game, whereas you can just kind of completely wipe out a resource quite easily, I think.
Yeah. And in this card game version, you can, you can quite quickly just...
Like, the uranium became really precarious, and I was like, I don't know whether this is...
Yeah, you put yourself in a bad situation in that last couple of rounds. I don't think you were paying too much attention to the resource market when you were buying your power plants.
I was just like, right, I want the best one.
And then you ended up like, you and Dave both had piles of coal plants or something like that, and there was not a lot of coal left.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed also he'd just been picking up loads of coal plants as well. It was just sort of like, alright, well, this...
that's the thing, you got to pay attention, man.
You got to watch. Got to watch.
Pawel, does this sound like the kind of game you would play?
You love power in Germany.
Can we please just move away from fossil fuels?
But we tried to.
Well, but why does this game not address this topic?
It does. It has renewables in it. It has uranium. I went for a combination for a while.
It's got uranium.
Well, I had a combination of nuclear and
No, but where's solar?
Wind power.
Wind
Solar,
power. Well, I think
solar power's in it.
I think they count wind power and solar power in the same category essentially, because there's no point in having two separate things for renewables if it's based on the resource.
Well, it's just pictures on a card. It doesn't matter. I mean,
it could be anything really.
No, but nowadays everything is political, and obviously choosing your strategy for delivering energy as
look, I'm just going to be honest with you here, right? See, when you're playing Power Grid,
yes,
the coal baron is king.
There you go.
Okay, that's what happened. This is the real world we're talking about, right?
The real world.
Kind of negotiable. It does.
Now we're getting that.
That's
the coal baron makes the most money.
Power Grid as well does come down to who can make the most money or who can power the most cities. And and a lot of the time that will come down to like just a bunch of massive coal and oil plants.
Oh yeah, it does. It really
in this
does.
game.
But
in the original Power Grid game, I don't know if it's in this card game actually, because you have to bin some cards and I never really looked at them.
Oh, you do have the fusion reactor.
Is the fusion reactor in the card game?
I don't know. Yeah, it's the one thing we didn't.
Oh, so I'm going to have to check that. But in the board game version, there's a fusion reactor. It's the most expensive plant in the game, the base game.
But
and it takes no resources, and it powers shitloads of stuff.
The thing about that is though, in the board game, and again we've talked a lot about the board game, but we've covered most of it.
Are you going to raise a contentious issue here?
Well, if you might say, you can go for a certain strategy, but it comes down to who can power the most cities at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And the power plants that can power the most cities are the best coal and the best oil plants.
That's true.
And
no,
possibly
right.
uranium has basically there's values that will tell you how many cities each one can power.
Yeah.
I think
and the high fusion has a lower value.
Yes.
It is 6, and you can get 7 on the other ones, which doesn't make sense to me because it's meant to be this holy get the fusion reactor, but you're.
I've seen people lose games of Power Grid because they fought out over the fusion reactor.
So really, the lesson to take from Power Grid is the big rush for renewable energy. You'll just waste all your money and you'll be beaten by coal barons.
That's my point, really.
Well, yeah, it's...
So you're saying you disagree with this game?
We live in
On
a
a
world
moral-
where
moral and
fiction and
philosophy.
entertainment always has to, or you're entitled to expect political opinions and statements from
maybe
any
that
work
is
of
one.
fiction.
Well,
So
if
you
that's
release a
what you
game that says, you know what, go for coal, man. You know that this is the way to go. Then this is your statement as a game maker.
So there are a whole load of people out there, right? So if we're going to open this can of worms,
Of course,
right,
we have to.
there are a whole load of people out there that will refuse to play games like Puerto Rico and stuff like that because it's essentially
Well, they are they're all
emulating
colonialists.
the slave trade.
Yeah,
Most of them are.
yeah.
In a kind of abstract fashion. But
It's-
I mean, in Puerto Rico, there's some
we've got some-
questionable choices in Puerto Rico.
Well, but I can understand it with Puerto Rico, and it's not a game I've played for a while, but it's from what I remember, yeah, there's some pretty obvious dodginess regarding it.
Yeah.
This is
Those
when
little discs, those little worker discs,
Yeah.
are just, they
Aye.
could have picked a different colour.
Well, they're a very particular shade of brown as well.
See, when you play, I don't know, Star Wars Rebellion, and you've got your dark side, then you know that they're, villains, but they're fictional villains. And when a game is attempting to emulate real world, then you get obviously all the hot topics to argue about, if you like.
So this is, I'm sure we've talked about this when we talked about Star Wars Battlefront when it came out. God knows how many episodes ago that was. But I remember raising the point that I find that game, right, I can play that game, okay?
Battlefront.
Like the Star Wars game.
The Star Wars one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But hear me out.
Right,
Okay. But I can't play stuff like Call of Duty and things like that, like the online stuff and that, because they're going for realism.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Whereas in Battlefront, it's the Star Wars universe. All right. If you shoot a stormtrooper in the face, that doesn't really matter. But if you're
Don't even shoot him,
emulating
you
like
pew him
killing people in the Middle East, I've got a problem with that.
with a knife to the face as well. Yeah.
It's weird because like I kind of go the other way, but maybe specifically with this board game, because I mean, yeah, you bring it up and it's something I've thought about before, is that because I really do enjoy this, like the German Euro games, but so many of them, the theme is like colonialism, and I hate that shit. Like anybody that comes up to me is like, oh, but there were benefits. Like, you're a wanker, mate. There were benefits.
yeah,
like
you're a
think of all the spices. Fuck you.
Yes.
Everything about colonialism.
This episode is now becoming our
I deny
statement.
its value in any sense, even what we might have from it now. So that said, I like playing those board games.
True.
But it doesn't.
So what we're saying is that we're all hypocrites.
They're all massive hypocrites. Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody
we're all
is.
massive hypocrites.
Everybody is. Anybody who tells you they're not a hypocrite is a hypocrite.
A hypocrite.
A hypocrite.
No, honestly, gaming is escapism, so it's like enjoying a happy life and going to watch a horror film from time to time. They might, I don't know, there might be a serial killer, some sort of scary clown that's gonna murder a few students, but you don't necessarily emulate that in real life, so...
But yeah, it doesn't have to be realistic. I mean, when I play Goa, I don't think about all the slaves getting like dysentery in the bottom of in the hulls of the boat and all that sort of stuff.
yeah,
or the
Do you not? That's my favourite thing
the
about that
workers
game.
exploited to till the fields and all this sort of thing.
So,
I just assume that it happens.
what I'm getting to is that players are quite free to enjoy the game for whatever they take it, but the makers of the game usually do tend to make a statement of one kind or another. If you pick up, I don't know, there's a computer game, Anno, I think, not 2205, the earlier Anno, which is a city builder, and it's straight away it asks you whether you want to play as a dastardly dastardly corporation that's all about industry, or if you want to play as an eco-friendly reformer that wants to bring in green energy, and the game doesn't specifically says this choice or that is better or worse, but at least it highlights the topic.
Well, that's fine though, because that gives you equal opportunity to win in either way.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. What we may have discovered about Power Grid is that really, if you go down the renewables route, it's not going to work for you.
It works for a while.
Yeah.
It's
can
made
be,
by
I think
Trump.
It's maybe,
It's a good mid-game strategy, but
and if you,
at the end of the game, like I say, coal baron is king.
you're in a good position if you're the first person to pick up a renewable power plant in Power Grid, either of the games really. But yeah, it's not going to serve you at the end of the game. That's the problem.
Now, I think we have to... I mean, I'm glad this has swung back to Power Grid. Now, I think we have to say that probably the reason why the renewables don't power as much stuff and the fission reactor doesn't power as much stuff is because it makes the game better if you have to pay to power more things. If you see what I mean. It's more gamey that way. You can get the biggest power plant that can power stuff, but you're going to have to pay for that.
I totally understand that it would be horrendously unfair.
Aye, if somebody got a fission reactor that powered 10 cities compared to a coal plant that only did 6.
Yeah, it's always just something though that has always been in the back of my mind. It's like, thematically, it stands out like a sore thumb. Just how does a fusion reactor powers less cities than some like mouldy old coal?
Is it fission or is it fusion?
Fission? I don't know.
I don't know, so I can't remember. It's either fusion or fission.
I don't know my physics terms.
Both are acceptable.
Right. All right. Fine.
You're Scots. You don't have to speak perfect English.
What about fishes?
And we don't.
Nah.
In fact, I refuse to.
There you go.
He's been asked as well.
People keep coming up to me in the street and saying, "Will you speak perfect?" I'm like, "No, no."
How dare you, sir? I shall be on my way now. He just did it.
Oh, bless you.
Okay, right. Well, that's going to wrap up our board games section. So. That was Power Grid by Freedom and Freesa.
Good man, good old Freedom.
He's the man who just loves the colour green. Oh yeah, seriously, he's just like he's mad for the colour green. His hair's always green and stuff like that. I mean, all his games are all green.
Right.
He's just a green man, a green man. He's a green man.
Yeah.
So that's by Rio Grande Games.
Good old Rio Grande.
Putting themselves back in the map.
I know it's good to see something from them after all these years.
Okay, so we will be back in a couple of... Well, it's a few minutes for us. It's about 30 seconds for you.
I know. Don't even know why we bother marking it.
Didn't go anywhere. We'll be back to talk about some video games in a bit. We are back, and we're going to talk about some video games now. I've got my tea, so I'm trying to cure my throat here. Pawel, you've not talked about anything for a while. You've just been sitting there quietly, which has been a nice change. But
I know. You're welcome. But the thing is, you've played these games without me. That's wrong.
Right. See, we need to just sort of like pull you up on that one because we're not playing the games without you. You're always invited. It's just that for some reason you think you've got better things to do, like work or pretend to be a vampire.
It's not right. Yes. It works most of the time. Yeah.
You've not got any comeback. That was interesting.
Because that was a very, very precise depiction of RPG, I must say. I wasn't prepared for that.
Right, fair enough. Okay, so we're going to let you talk. What have you been playing?
Yes, hello. Tyranny is the game of the week. In terms of gameplay, not necessarily in terms of prizes won. Tyranny I picked up on Steam. It's made by Paradox
and Obsidian.
Indeed, and Obsidian. So the makers of Pillars of Eternity. And I don't think I'll be able to talk about Tyranny without referencing Pillars of Eternity.
Well, it uses the same engine and everything, doesn't it? And gameplay style and all that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's very similar. And it feels... It's not a sequel in any way. It takes a formula, and it's pretty much a trade-off. It sheds some of the things in Pillars of Eternity, and it expands some other aspects of what you would have found in Pillars of Eternity. And if you guys remember, because that was probably like 87 episodes ago, we've spoken about, or I've spoken about Pillars of Eternity. It probably took me about 3 hours to fully express how excited I was about the game, and because I tend to talk about how excited I am about games, as opposed to actually talking about the games. Yes.
Well, but actually, before you go, recap what kind of a game was Pillars of Eternity? I'm racking my brains.
Baldur's Gate, remember?
Oh, right.
So you know how we played Divinity the other day?
Similar as well.
It's very similar to Divinity.
Very similar.
So
it's team-based, isometric view, fantasy setting, and that's pretty much that. Yeah, RPG quest up, pick up some exps, and do stuff in a world somebody else designed.
Did you just use the term quest up?
Quest up.
Quest up.
Yeah.
Ow.
Now, just before I move on, just to make sure that I properly re-express my excitement about Pillars of Eternity, it was absolutely amazing, and the setting created for Pillars of Eternity in particular was just rich and original. And I think one of the reasons why I may have not fully sort of get on the Tyranny bandwagon is that I may have expected something similar in style or in feel to Pillars of Eternity. It's a game that just took a bit of what Pillars of Eternity was and made that bit better, but also sacrificed quite a lot on the way. So you've got your whatever character you make as in any of those games, but you're not just any average adventurer. You're straight from the start. You're pretty much an agent or some sort of other top level operator of an evil overlord. And the whole theme of Tyranny, and they not you know about it from the start, is that this is a game which is going to put you in the shoes of an evil character in a world where evil has triumphed, and all your whatever enemies and mobs you're going to meet on your way are pretty much just peasants and freedom fighters that you're just going to butcher up and trample under your feet. And I suppose in order to properly enjoy Tyranny, at some point you have to like that plot. I've not played the full game. I might just keep playing, but I've played the first act. There's 3 acts in the game, and I think when I started playing the game, kept playing, sort of expecting that maybe there's going to be a twist somewhere. I thought there would be, and I don't think there's going to be anymore.
Have you become wearied with all of the evil?
See, not necessarily evil as such. It's just in these games, Pillars of Eternity, as you said, Divinity. You may create your character's looks, and you may give your character a class, but your actual character arc or plot lines you take part in are written for you. You make some choices along the way that sort of help you. See, I have to roleplay when I play these games, yes, because these are actually role-playing games.
But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that if you're playing something like Divinity, for example, I haven't played Pillars of Eternity, I have played Divinity, but you can choose to be a bastard in that game.
Exactly.
But you can also choose to be good.
Yeah.
But in Tyranny, which by the way I own, I just haven't played yet, it seems that you're just being forced down this path of being evil.
You can be evil in a number of different ways. You can be absolutely sick, as in to the point of, I don't know, spiking people, ordering tortures, and having a laugh alongside. Or you can be evil, like Tory government evil, yeah.
I think that's more evil.
But what I mean is fairly.
We've gone political again.
Yes, fairly organised and despotic, but still evil. I think just when you start playing any RPG game, you're sort of expecting to be this wanderer or some sort of adventurer that ends up, in whatever plotline your game master really puts you in. But at least you feel that your character, before they became, I don't know, saviors of the world or whatever other. There's so many different plotlines that usually just end up being you saving the world. This game doesn't really even let you immerse yourself in your character that much. It just straight away you're pretty much a lackey sent by the evil overlord to pretty much cast some magic that's gonna destroy whatever valley, and you're I think you're responsible for whatever laws this evil army is gonna. You know what? Like, setting aside, yes, because some players will like tyranny for the setting, for the whole concept of, you know, evil has won and what are you going to do about it? Because it's original. I don't think it's been done in such a game before. I may have not liked it, but there's going to be people that will enjoy it.
It sounds like an interesting concept, and it doesn't necessarily, like, the idea that a character, you know, you're placed in, and I can maybe see why they probably have to make you go a certain way with the character so you can keep in with that plot, so you're not going to go, well, I reject the values of this evil empire that I'm a part of. I'm going to, like, you have to be made to play through and sort of immerse yourself in that character.
The choices you presented with allow you to be maybe partially merciful sometimes, or be, you know, sickeningly evil.
I like the idea that you're just like a sort of like a mid-level, just bureaucrat type, fantasy bureaucrat with a sword.
Well, almost.
Is it not like a sort of Judge Dredd style character almost? Like you are judge, jury, and executioner.
Made him sound a lot more boring than Judge Dredd before. But
I suppose, but Judge Dredd is still the force of good, you know.
No, he's not. He's true neutral.
Evil world.
a true neutral.
Probably about lawful neutral, probably.
I suppose,
more accurate to describe him as lawful neutral. But he's neutral. He's not good.
No,
he's not a good man.
No, you're right. Yeah. Fair enough. True.
He's been on the beat too long to be a good man.
He's seen some shit. Now, right, Pawel, how much of this have you played?
I've played 1/3 of the game, let's say.
Well, you've played one act.
Yes, there's 3 acts.
But that's not a third of the game because there's the first act's
That's a good point.
short.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Okay, because I've heard other people talking about this game. This is why I picked it up. People on other podcasts, and they've basically said that this game does kind of change a bit. I mean, I think the thing is that your character is essentially an evil character, but I think there are some choices that you can make in this game that will change how everything that happens in this world, and you can end up making it maybe not so much a good place, but a different place.
I think so, and this is one of the points of the entire game as such. Normally, games of this type, and definitely Pillars of Eternity, put you on a fairly linear quest. Yeah, you can do whatever sub quests and the like, but the story will eventually get you where it's supposed to get you. Tyranny is you see in the design of Tyranny from the very moment you start playing it that this is a game about replayability, really, because your choices do matter depending on how you decide to act in certain situations, and which faction do you decide to support will actually change the way this game goes. And I've not finished it. I've not even, I've just the first act here, and I can say straight away that there's going to be multiple endings, and there's going to be multiple ways in which your character can reshape the world.
Yeah.
But it also means that you have to sacrifice a lot of things in order for such a modular adventure to actually take place. Pillars of Eternity was really well written. You could feel an actual proper book-like narration in it. Immersion into the character was well done. There was a lot of surprises along the way. It was top notch. Whereas in Tyranny, there is a lot of stuff going on that you can see mechanics in them. Even though there's still obviously narration, your character is talking. Obviously, your NPCs are talking, but you can see that all these scenes and all the events you're taking place in have direct effects in some faction gaining or losing various. I'm gonna say this game is all about who you favor and who your actions support, more or less. And almost every single choice you make in this or another way change this. There were bits of it in Pillars of Eternity, but it was mostly about relationships with your friends. And you could, not all of them were friends. It was an interesting party in Pillars of Eternity. It was a fascinating world, brilliantly done, religion deities sort of things, and cosmology over there. But in Tyranny, it's you don't even feel, or I've not managed to sense any sort of attachment to any of the NPCs actual characters that make up your group, because they just very generic. You get your tank, you get your rogue, you get your mage, and you have your own character, and Bashonia. They have their own backstories, but it's difficult to attach yourself to them, because they're all evil, and you amongst.
And you're such a nice guy.
Well,
is what you're saying.
Let me
Too
put it
nice
like
to
this.
like these evil people.
Mass Effect, which is my favorite game ever, is all about apparently choices. I've tried playing Mass Effect a number of times, and I always play it the same way. Because my Commander Shepard, once...
Your Commander Shepard would never do that thing.
No, you punch the reporter in the face. You need some some renegade in your Commander Shepard, but mostly Paragons. That's just the way it is.
But I think that sounds to me the more interesting. I would be interested to try Tyranny. Just from the setting and the ideas behind that setting seem interesting. Like the sort of the moral ambiguity of it, and kind of placing yourself. See, you were saying about the game possibly changing. The way I thought it was like, well, the idea if the world has been taken over by an evil, and the idea of it being this has been. Surely some good within that would start to emerge. If nothing else if there's only evil, there can't just be only evil.
You want to bring balance to the force.
There has to be balance. Yeah, right. And that to me seems the way it would go.
See, I'm not... Because I have heard, like I say, I've heard other people talking about this game, and I've got a kind of rough idea of what happens in it. Now, I don't want to ruin anything, but I don't think that the world suddenly becomes good or anything like that. The game's... It's not that kind of game.
Seems
but you
complex.
can change this world, and...
I think,
but that's what more about. I mean, like little things that you can kind of say. This is the seeds of something.
But I think that you're still essentially playing an evil character. Is the thing, like a person that's a bit twisted.
And it really just depends on who you support. From the very moment of the game, you're either because there's two forces really, two armies that you bring along or you join sort of along the way.
Right.
Two armies that are conquering the last bit of the world. And one army is. A chaotic horde of unskilled, mad, bloodthirsty, fresh conscripts that either die or not. If they don't die in the first battle, then eventually they get more and more crazy and bloodthirsty, and their entire concept behind this army is that they're just an unstoppable, mad force, and there's so many of them because, they just keep recruiting from every army they conquer. And then there's another elite force of very pragmatic, very stoic, cruel, and to the point, ironclad warriors. And every single choice you make will usually be about supporting one or the other. And every other choice you make in this game is really all about the outcome of your decisions. I'm going to say materializing in one sort of reputation rising or relationship with another character rising or not. All these relationships and all these faction powers have a direct consequence in the skills your character has, because the more favor you gain with this army or the more loyalty you get with that character, at some point at whatever third, fourth, fifth tier will give you this or that skill. And this is something that in Pillars of Eternity was maybe nuanced, or if shown at all, whereas this game seems to be all about it.
Right.
Which is fair enough. I mean, team-based games are all about synergy between, your fighter, your DPS, your healing, and how you composed your party in order to tackle the challenges. And this game does it really well. Graphics are better. But on the other hand, you don't really feel that this is a fictional fantasy world full of impressive beasts and a lot of fantasy races. It's just humans battling each other. I've not seen anything else through the first act. I've only really been fighting humans armed the same way, predictable. So all in all, I'm gonna say Much,
it
much
sounds
smaller maps, yeah?
Much is that your
No, that's the
in
takeaway.
conclusion? Much smaller maps.
This was the thing that kept me playing, yeah? If you play through the first, second, third map, and you know that in Pillars of Eternity you would spend half an hour exploring that bit of the world and having numerous encounters and stuff like this, whereas and Tyranny, it's essentially every single map is one encounter period. They're just tiny. So I was quite disappointed by it, but I thought, you know what, this is probably just a tutorial, I'll keep playing, and nothing really changed much. Then you unlock your first stronghold, and you know, in Pillars of Eternity you had a stronghold and you could actually improve it, and it will give you skills and blah blah blah.
Okay.
And here you can actually find and I suppose start improving 5 different strongholds. So it's less about story, more about, you know, things like this.
Okay.
What skills you unlock, and how exactly you do it. But the whole game will just keep rolling around 2 different factions. Which one of these are you trying to be for? Which one of these are you trying to be against? Even if you try to balance between of them, the game usually just penalizes you for it and tells you straight away, listen, you have to make your choice.
So, to tie it all together, in conclusion, in a nice little bow.
Yeah, I
what
encourage you to
Pawel's
do
saying
it.
about Tyranny is gameplay doesn't compare well to Pillars of Eternity, and none of the characters are likeable. So, what?
You just did what he took about 20 minutes to say.
I was
protest!
listening. You were active listening.
Proof that you were listening.
Well, yes, I should have started with that.
Right, so Pawel,
But then you wouldn't have had anything else.
I get the impression you're not going to continue playing this.
I want to see if the maps are getting bigger.
Right.
I want to see if there's more variety in it. The first act was a disappointment, and I'm sorry because Pillars of Eternity was amazing.
I mean, this game's actually got some pretty good reviews from...
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually think that many people will quite like it. I may have not caught on because I liked Pillars of Eternity so much, and I expected a different game.
I'm sort of playing through a pile of games that I got over the Christmas period, so once I get around to actually playing it, we'll come back and talk about this, because I want to form an opinion on my own. Alright, I don't want Pawel telling me what to think here. Well, I'll bring, like you say, I'll bring balance. I'll bring some balance.
Somebody better bring some balance.
Games like this are about mystery, exploration, discovery, and the first act of Tyranny is really not. It's straightforward and constricting.
But is it? Okay. I don't think it's pretending not to be that, though.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. If I shouldn't be treating it as Pillars of Eternity.
Yeah, then maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, I think it is.
Because I've not played Pillars of Eternity, so I'll come into it with a fresh
You might just enjoy it so much better. But then just, you know what, pick up Pillars of Eternity. It's awesome.
I've still got to play through Divinity, man.
Yeah.
Need to find somebody to play through that with.
Oh, I'm up for that. I was quite enjoying what we played.
Well, we'll talk about that in the future once we've played a bit more of that, actually, because that's a really good game. Divinity Original Sin, really good. Really okay, so that was Tyranny, which only came out in November, I think. November 2016. So that's by Obsidian Entertainment and Paradox Interactive. Okay, so we'll move on. Let's talk about a VR game, Pawel. Let's talk about...
As soon as you've had an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say that this particular VR made me... there was a bit of motion sickness. I've recovered by now, but it took me a good 20 minutes to actually just...
That's weird, because I've not had any real issues with motion sickness in this game. I had the first 30 seconds of me playing this game. Like, I was like, oh god. But then it just passed. And then this is Eve Valkyrie that we're talking about. So this is the game that's the sort of dogfighting little fighter ships flying around in space. Set in the EVE Online universe, which I know absolutely nothing about. But when I saw this game, I thought that looks pretty fucking cool. This is the kind of thing.
Amazing.
This is the kind of thing that VR seems to have been made for. Is this kind of space combat style thing? It's the first thing that you would think of.
Absolutely.
There seem to be a few things popping up, and I mean, I remember saying I quite enjoyed the Scavenger's Odyssey thing. From which you're not about in space, but there's a similar sort of concept in the way they control, and it's more just using the VR as an immersion thing, and you're in a cockpit feeling, sort of thing.
Well, that's the main thing that I've got from Eve Valkyrie is that see the immersion that I've had in this game. Because I was saying to you the other day there that this is probably the first VR game I've played where I've put that helmet on and forgot that I'm wearing this helmet, really. That I've just got that immersed in the game.
Yeah.
Nice.
I sat, played it for an hour and a half, and then when I took the helmet off finally, I was just like, Jesus, it's daylight. Like, where am I? What is going on? I've been in space for an hour and a half. Like,
Right.
you know? And now, obviously, let's say it's a pretty basic idea. It's really just
Arcade
multiplayer,
in terms of
arcade dogfighting. There's multiple different ships that you can get, and it's mainly a multiplayer game. Let's face it. There is a single player thing going on here, which Pawel insisted on playing because Pawel only does single player experiences.
Because I'm scared of
if you
people.
know what I mean.
Much of an experience that.
But this thing is pretty much. I mean, in fact, when you play this game for the first time, it makes you go through a tutorial and then it throws you straight into multiplayer.
Right.
Like, it doesn't even give you the choice of going into single player. It's just like, okay, this is the game now. Now, it's got this whole thing with, like, you know, you play through, you get experience based on the different ship types. So you've got fighters, you've got heavies, and you've got supports. And you'll unlock different ships as you go through, so you'll get different types of fighter. They all look virtually identical though, like, so all the fighters look pretty much the same. They've just got like maybe slightly different guns. They'll have different stats, so they've got like armor and shield and power and stuff like that. But yeah, they don't really look that much different. You can customize them, you can buy skins and stuff. So as you're playing these missions, you're getting credits that you can spend, and you're getting all these different resources and all that kind of thing. Pretty bog standard multiplayer stuff, to be honest. But the actual game itself, I mean, it looks good.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pawel, you sat and played it for a good hour, in fact, and it just flew by. You didn't even realise you'd been sitting there playing it for an hour.
I wanted to record the podcast whilst still playing it.
Yeah, you actually did say, I don't actually need my eyes.
Yeah. And we were sitting in front of mics. I could have spent the past 30 minutes or so shooting, NPCs and training drones.
There was no NPCs.
Actually, yeah.
They were just static targets.
Just shooting
that
targets.
you were still missing.
Well, it took me a while to realise that I actually aim with your head.
Oh yeah, well that's the heavy. So here we go. Like the different classes, they have different things going on with them. So the fighter classes, it's going to have Gatling guns or auto cannons or something, depending on which one you've got, and that'll just shoot straight ahead. So wherever you're pointing your ship, it's just going to shoot at that. But then when you've got the heavy class, the main gun on that is actually aimed by whatever you're looking at.
All right.
So you can just be looking around, and it's quite cool because the guns are on the sides of the ship, and as you're looking, the guns are waving round and circling, like pointing wherever you're looking and stuff like that. And it looks good. Like the game, like I say, I was just so immersed in it, just completely lost myself in the space combat, and it's all pretty high intensity stuff. You're just thrown straight in. There's different maps, there's different objectives. There's like some of them are just team deathmatch. It's all team based, and some of it is just team deathmatch. Just kill as many of the other ships as you can. There's other ones where you've got to capture points and hold them. You get bonus points for doing that. There's other ones where you capture points, and by doing so, you bring the shields down on the enemy mothership, and then you have to go and attack targets on the mothership and try and destroy it. Basically, I really enjoyed that one. I thought that was actually because that was actually taken. It wasn't just everybody's just trying to kill each other. There was actually some strategy involved in this.
Yeah.
If your mothership goes down, the shields go down, you've got to get back there and defend that place with everything that you've got, because you can end up losing the game here. And it's, I was just, like I say, just totally immersed in it. It's become my favourite VR game. Pawel, how did you feel about it?
Well, I'm gonna put it like this: the first batch of games that I've played through on your VR did seem to me like a sample, This comes with the VR. Have a look at what we can do with the technology. The first game that I really felt was actually sort of gamey something that I would potentially pick up, not for the VR, but rather just for the gameplay, was Scavengers something.
Scavengers
the
Odyssey.
The alien dude in the walker thing. But I was really looking forward to playing Eve Online. I've only scratched the surface because...
Eve Valkyrie.
Yes, Eve Valkyrie, because I like to take it slow with games, yeah? Before I actually... Oh, yeah.
I just couldn't help myself.
Thank you.
I like to take it slow.
I like to play multiplayer, not as often maybe as the other person, but still, I prefer to be prepared before I do that.
My name's Chris, I'm not the other person.
The other one over there. So, and also, I'm usually interested in the story, and I do know EVE Online well enough to sort of be hungry to see how they're actually utilizing it here. And obviously in the tutorial itself I won't see it, but at least I get to see how the game plays as such. You don't really get to see fighters much in EVE Online because that's a different scale of the game, and your fighters, if anything, are just drones automatically deployed and blah. But in any case, at some point I'll be hopefully looking forward to play through some of the campaign and get to see some more. But it looks absolutely amazing, and you know, it's arcadey. It's
very arcadey.
It's all about dexterity. It's all about, there's obviously tactics involved once you get good enough to survive, you know, long enough to actually involve tactics in what you do. But it's easy to pick up. It's easy to learn. If you're not me, if you're me, then you know, just sort of, you have to realize that some ships differ and you have to shoot where you look at and stuff like that. But it feels good flying that.
It's really intuitive, isn't it?
It's fun, you know. You've seen me play through that tutorial and doing nothing else but just flying around the rocks and shooting at various things. I normally don't do that in games. Because you know it's boring. But it was good fun.
But in this,
just
like I say,
flying around.
They've set it up so well that you do almost feel like you're just sitting in that cockpit, and you can look around you, like you can look behind you, you can look around the ship, and you know, look out your windows. That's actually a really important part of this game, is like actually just being able to look to see where other things are. So like you're just flying along and you're. So, okay, where is everybody? There's a whole bunch of enemies on that side. Yeah. There's one guy over there. Yeah. I'm going to go after him.
You're right. You know? And it took me a while to actually realize, you know what, I should be looking around, because when you play such games, and obviously we've all played games for decades without VR, so we're quite used to thinking, okay, this icon says that there is an enemy on my left. We have to turn to see it. Yeah. Well, obviously you don't have to in this game, but you know
in this it's just a head turn. There
exactly, which is brilliant.
And it's really responsive and everything in this game. Like I've not had any problems with this game in terms of like the head tracking and all that kind of thing. It's just like it's been so responsive, so intuitive. The controls are really easy, like intuitive, I suppose. Just use that word yet again. But it's just everything on it just seems to work. It seems to work so well.
Absolutely, it's a simple concept. It just seems to be working really
well executed.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and I want more.
Yeah. Now, how is this fit into the EVE Online universe?
I've no idea yet.
You've no idea yet?
Well, you know, EVE Online is mostly factions battling each other with huge ships, so fighters as such don't really feature much in EVE Online mythology as such.
There was something on the back that would just explain about there's some group of folk, like the Valkyries is like a specific thing. That's what it's named after.
Well, I'm not ready of that
but
yet.
That's not something that's appeared in EVE Online.
There is some weird story when you play through this tutorial thing. I don't know, did you get that weird story, Pawel?
No.
Or did you just get the actual
No, my tutorial was only technical.
So there was a weird story that you're actually dead, and you're basically just being brought back as a sort of AI consciousness thing. Oh, okay. And so's your whole team. So that woman that's constantly speaking to you as you're going through the tutorial missions and that fun. Now you got the robot voice actually. Yeah. But there's a woman that's speaking to you, and she was the leader of your squad before you died and all that sort of thing.
I mean, dying in the actual setting of EVE Online is really just downloading into another clone.
Yeah, so that's basically what this
technically
this
speaking, in EVE Online you don't die for as long as you have a clone waiting somewhere there for your consciousness to download onto. So
that's how they keep scoring these things as well. Like the multiplayer sort of team deathmatch and stuff, it tells you how many clones each team has left.
Yeah.
And then obviously if you just kill them enough times, then you win because they run out of clones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's such a... It was a really surprising experience for me that it's become probably my favourite VR game now. I can't get enough of it. I mean, I'm just been...
Well, if you
went and turned it on at midnight the other night there when I should have been in bed.
If you rewind yourself 20 years into the past, into the times of like TIE Fighter and games like this, Wing Commander, and we all lived through fantasies like this without, knowing that that's obviously never going to happen. So this is a dream come true to all the kids in
totally
us.
Is. Wing Commander,
being able to play something like this. So yeah.
Classic.
Wing Commander 4 with Mark Hamill playing his... I'm totally not Luke Skywalker, by the way. those videos.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, that's Eve Valkyrie by CCP Games. Now that came out on Microsoft Windows actually in March 2016.
But Chris decided not to buy it because he hates me.
What?
What?
I don't have a VR headset for Windows.
Oh, that's true.
How much money do you think I have?
I don't know. You're
on this podcast every week talking about the stuff you own.
That's a board game collection, man.
Like this is an addiction though. Like
that's
I mean,
true,
I'm spending money I don't really have.
Well, judging by the rate of the boxes that come through, they come at the door. Fair enough.
Let's not go into this. All right, let's not go into this. It's my secret shame.
No, it's not. You display it on the shelf.
Yeah,
podcast
it's not secret. I do a podcast about it. I'm just really confused, alright?
As long as you're having fun, Chris.
So it came out on the PS4 in October. So this was pretty much a release VR game. And what a game! What a game! Okay, let's move on. So, like I was saying, I've just had a pile of games over the Christmas period and stuff that like I've been given like Steam vouchers and Amazon vouchers, and my girlfriend got me like various other things and stuff like that. So I've got a pile of games sitting there that I would love to talk about.
That sounds very Christmassy.
But I'm just going to talk about one more because this is the other than Eve Valkyrie. This is the other game that I've put a lot of time into since Christmas and stuff, and it's Planet Coaster.
Oh yeah.
Now, which weirdly was made by Frontier, who are the people behind Elite Dangerous.
Okay,
right.
So that's the connection.
So, and this is a theme park management simulator.
Yeah. Okay.
But I've just been reading, like, just before we started this, that it turns out that Frontier actually did work on one of the Roller Coaster Tycoon games early on in the development. So I never knew that.
Because you were talking
so
about earlier.
They do have a track history of this.
Well, the development of this game, or maybe I'm getting it confused with what you were saying about the fact that basically theme park, or whoever does theme park, is it Maxis? No, who's theme park? Who makes who?
No, Maxis did SimCity.
Oh right.
Theme park
I'm
was
completely blanking on that.
Oh yeah, right.
Because I cannot. It's like the tip of my mental tongue. I can see the thing appearing on my SNES.
Bullfrog.
That's the one.
Bullfrog did a lot of classic games.
You were saying about basically their most recent theme park game was an abject failure.
No, but that was Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Oh.
So that was Roller Coaster Tycoon World, which came out at about the same time as Planet Coaster did.
Oh, right.
And it just got panned. Like, I've not played it myself, so I can't really go into it, but hang on, let me just quickly bring something up here.
So
yeah, I'm looking on the Wikipedia page for Roller Coaster Tycoon World, which came out November 16th last
Classic
year.
Research.
And it's only had one review on here, 43 out of 100. Now, Planet Coaster, that's up in the 80s, like
It's
8 9s out of 10s and stuff like that. So this game, by the way, right, Planet Coaster, let's actually just let me talk about my experience with it. It's just brilliant, right? It's so, like, this is the theme park simulator that you wanted when you started playing theme park back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Alright? This is what you were hoping would happen. right, that you would get this. Like, I mean, the game has just got so much, like, it's how much you can customize it is one of the main the strengths of it in terms of the way that you can build all your roller coasters, the scenery that you can put in, the way that you can morph like the terrain, all these little things like you can just throw in. Like when it comes to scenery, you can put in stuff like animatronic, like robots and stuff like that, and you can go right down into the nitty gritty things. You can, like, if you want to just micromanage, you know, I'm going to change the price of this roller coaster 10 cents less. You know, if you really want to go into that, like, that's all there. I think the other main strength of Planet Coaster is that they've just let it be a bit silly.
Right.
Okay, so it's got like cartoony graphics and stuff like that, but they will let you make a roller coaster that just wouldn't really work in a physical world. Like clearly your cars would just come flying off this track because you've just made them go that fast. But they've not like just went, yeah, that track doesn't work, you're going to have to do something about that. They've just went, nah, that's fine. But what happens in this
from one end to another.
Yeah, it connects from one end to another. But what happens in this is that like all your tracks have all got, they've got an excitement rating and they've got a nausea rating.
Oh,
and they've
excellent.
got something else as well. I think it's I don't know if it's fun or something like that. And you can go into the red with a nausea rating and stuff like that, and people will walk up to it and they'll go, nah. They'll just take a look at it. They actually walk up to the start of the queue and they'll just go, I don't want that. No.
No thanks.
I've been to Alton Towers once, and that reminds me of me.
Yes. But there's so many like different types of coaster that you can put in this. One of the first things that I did, Euan, because we're talking about Alton Towers there, one of my favourite things at Alton Towers is the Spinball Whizzer. Remember the Spinball Whizzer? The one that, like, it was a Sonic themed ride at one point.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why it was taking me a while to remember.
But, so that it's got the little carts that you can get 4 people sit, and they sit back to back.
And you spin them out all over
the cart itself spins as it goes round this track. One of the first things I did was made one of those. Because I love those fucking rides. They're great fun.
Break all the time.
And then you can get in all sorts of different little. So you've got all sort of like roller coasters that are clearly aimed towards kids, like they won't invert or anything like that. And there's so much stuff that you can do in it. Now, as you pointed out, there's 3 different ways that you can play this game. There's the sandbox mode, which is money is no object. You just make the coaster park that you want to make. And that's fun, but I mean, I like a bit more. I do like limitations and what I can do and stuff like that. So there's the career. I don't know if it's a career mode. I think it's possibly called, or is it? No, it's just challenge mode. Sorry, which is where you are limited. You have money. You have to make money, and then you can spend that money, and you have to do research. So you have to research different types of roller coaster and things like that. It's quite cool. Excuse me. The way that the research works, because it doesn't actually tell you what type of roller coaster you're going to make, but it will give you a little hint. So it'll say something like, crazy spinning or something like that, and then you'll go, okay, I'll make that, and then it's made that Spinball Whizzer style thing. But you can also, there's like actual just little rides that you can put in as well. You can put the teacups in, all that kind of thing. Like, you've got all those standard theme park rides that you need to have if you're going to have a theme park. The other sort of mode is the career mode, which basically has pre-made parks in it, which you have objectives. So you'll get a park that's like, okay, this park isn't doing so great, you're going to have to fix that, and you can play through that. I played through one of those things and I was just like, nah. I went straight into the challenge mode and then just started building a park, making like a business basically. And you've got so much space to play with, and yeah, I've gone from there. Now, like I say, one of the strengths about the game is like how much you can customize it, and in terms of like what you can put in, they've gone quite into depth with that, so that you can actually create a bunch of stuff that you could put together. So you could put together a bunch of walls and then put a shop inside that, and then maybe put a shop on top with some stairs leading up and all that kind of thing, and then you can put like bushes and, like you say, robots and statues and everything. Like, there's all sorts of stuff in this that you can put in, and you can make that into one building. You can link it all together into one building. You can copy that and put it somewhere else, upload it, and you've got the whole Steam Cloud thing going on and all that kind of thing. And you can just make your park look completely unique, because of the level of customization that's in it. It's so good. Now I'm not great with the whole creative side of thing, but even I've found that I'm coming up with some really pretty cool little things.
Yeah.
Even just sticking a whole load of bushes in right next to each other, but getting different colours of bushes, and it makes it look like you've made a little sort of jungle style thing, sort of thing, like that people will walk around, and it makes your customers happy when they see that sort of stuff. I mean, they get annoyed, like, you know, you can click on like people. I want to get off Mr. Bones' wild ride, just to see what they're thinking.
Yeah.
If they're standing in a queue for a ride and you've not put any scenery around that queue, they're just like, this queue's really boring. Like, and then, you know, it kind of makes them a wee bit unhappy because they're just like, well, I'm not standing in this queue for ages, there's nothing here to look at. So it kind of encourages you to actually throw all the scenery in and not just make a bland park that's only got rides and doesn't affect anything. So it's pretty good. One of the other things, morphing the terrain. All right, seeing other coaster games and that kind of thing, and all these other simulation games where morphing the terrain costs a fortune. All right, in this game, it costs very little to morph the terrain. Excellent decision, right? Really, really good decision, because you can then make hills and stuff in your park when you've not got a lot of money. That you could like make a big hill, put a coaster through it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and then that adds to your scenery rate and stuff like that as well, because people are like, that's quite exciting, you know, that they've gone through this thing. Everything about this game, perfect, I would say.
It sounds very, very creative.
Yeah.
When I think about your gaming, I think, you know, chaos. I think havoc. This is your gameplay style. How do you mess with it, Chris? Because you have to mess with games.
You can. While you're making roller coasters, okay, you can test them before you've even joined the track back up. So you can, if you want, point a roller coaster at a path which has got a whole bunch of people on it, and then just set off.
Now we're talking.
And then you'll hit everybody. So they've not gone into this thing. People don't die in this game.
No,
they will go flying. Will go flying, but they'll just get up and walk off.
Be a bit annoyed about it.
A bit annoyed, yeah.
Because, like I say, they've gone for that slightly.
Of course.
Not taking it that seriously. They're not just saying, "Oh my God, you killed 50 people with this." They're just like, "Yeah, you're an idiot." Like, but yeah, the game looks good. The controls are quite intuitive. Some bits can be a wee bit fiddly.
I suppose going to ask about the challenge mode. Is it quite?
It's not time.
Like you see, there's a lot of like sort of customization, a lot of detail you can go into. Do you have to go into? Because one of the things I remember, and I actually recently played Theme Park on the DS or something like that, and there was different settings for that, and there was sort of like what I would have deemed like the classic theme park mode, which is more what you're talking about. This is where, you know, you have a certain amount of money, you just have to run it profitably or whatever like that. But then there's the more in depth, and it's insane. Like, it's not even possible to do some of the stuff I found. I was like, you need to keep your individual like canteen, like concession stands stocked. And I was just like,
so they've not gone crazy. They've not done stuff like that.
Right.
That theme park on the DS, I'm pretty sure because that's basically a SNES port, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a port from the SNES game, and I'm pretty sure that wasn't in the SNES game.
No, that definitely wasn't. Like they've added extra layers,
and that was weird.
But like I remember trying that, and I was like, you couldn't. Some of the stuff you couldn't get to the things quick enough to restock your some of the like the cola places, or whatever. Like that.
This game hasn't done stuff like that. Right. I mean, really, in terms of like when it comes to the micromanagement, you can set the prices of like your drinks and stuff like that. Oh, here, pro tip. Drinks are free, toilets, they're a tenner.
Nice.
Right. Oh no. I'm never going back to Alton Towers.
See, I think you might find that people would possibly find that agreeable, because they'd want to challenge you on it. They'd be like, well, I'll drink as much as I can. I'll only go to the bog the once.
Now, when it comes to things like your roller coasters and your ride and stuff like that, you can go into some kind of detail with them. So, like the rides, let's take the teacups, for example. So, everybody knows what the teacups are. You sit in your little teacup, it spins. You can actually change how many times it spins and in what direction it's going to spin in each time and all that sort of thing.
That's reasonable.
And it has preset settings that like most people will be happy with, but if you really want to make the ride half the time, you can do that just by getting rid of one of the things, you know, just like you're not spinning anti-clockwise, you're only going clockwise once and then get off. Like, but then people, of course, if you do that, people start complaining about the price if you keep the price the same and you've cut the ride time in half. People are just like, well, I'm not paying that much just to go on it,
Right.
like for that amount of time. So there's things like that you can do. But it comes to the roller coasters. That's it's quite interesting what they've done with that actually, because if you set up certain sections of your roller coaster to have a certain type of like brake, you could put multiple cars on that roller coaster. So what would happen was that when a car goes around the roller coaster, it'll stop at this brake. So say you put it towards the end, it'll stop at this brake, and then the car that's sitting in the station can go,
Right.
and then that car will come round. So there's certain points that, like if you put loads of these brakes in, you could have shitloads of carts on your thing, and then it's a faster way of getting people through, and all that sort of thing. You can change things like the speed of the chain lift, so you can make it really fast, which I do, because why would you not do that? Why would you not get people to the top of that hill as fast as you possibly can?
It's about the tension, though.
Yeah.
It's about the mounting tension.
Oh, you can put your own MP3 files in this game. Alright, so I've got a log flume which is constantly playing Rock the Boat. I've also got another ride.
A classic Alton Towers moment.
Classic Alton Towers moment. I've got a ride which is like a high intensity thrill ride thing, which is playing Atomic by Blondie. And we have this really weird ride called the Psychola or something like that, which is just like weird. It goes round and then the car you're sitting in spins as well. And I've got that playing Tarred and Feathered by the Cardiacs because it goes really well with it. Because it's just a weird ride. So there's stuff like that you can do that, and you can change the colours of everything. It's all just so customisable that, and it's just one of those games that you will sit and enjoy, and you don't feel like you really need to do anything just to enjoy it. There's no tension involved in it. It's all just let your creative juices flow, really, and if you just want to sit back and watch people going around the rides, you can. If you want to ride the rides yourself, you can. It's all sorts of things that you can do with it, and it's just it's the best by a country mile theme park simulator I've ever played, and I've played a lot of them.
Well, I've not played any ever. I've been to a theme park once, and you have to queue there.
I know if you go at the right times.
Yeah. You gotta go in February.
Right. Or you gotta wait until like about 20 minutes before they close and just do Nemesis 3 or 4 times until you feel a bit sick.
Yeah. Oh, was it not Air that you went on?
It was Air. I managed to get Air and Nemesis in. One Air and 2 Nemesis just before the park closed, and there was no queue. It was brilliant. I did feel sick afterwards though.
I gotta say, as a person that always plays something thematic, whether it's science fiction or cyberpunk or fantasy, this actually sounds pretty cool. I might just pick it up.
I mean, I forgot, it's not the cheapest game on the planet, I'm going to be honest with you. This is like 40 quid or something like that for this game.
Wishlist then, okay.
But it's worth it. It's totally worth it. I mean, and you can just do what you want with it. Just mean, if you want, like I say, it almost feels like every video I've seen of other people, like, they're making parts unique to themselves, and they're making rides unique to themselves, sort of thing. The kind of rides that they would go on. So I've obviously just made completely insane ones that wouldn't work in real life.
There you go, yeah.
That's it. But yeah, it's just that it's a really good game. Can't recommend it enough. Game of the year.
Oof.
Game of the year.
Oof.
Fair enough.
Okay,
Already.
well, I think that's us. That's episode 35.
Aye.
That's brilliant.
Kicking off the year with a belter.
Yes.
Episode 35.
Now, this is probably going to be the last episode we release on a Wednesday. I think we were going to do this one on a Saturday, but the whole Christmas New Year thing didn't really work out.
It
all got a bit mad.
Lazier than planned.
Yeah. So yeah, I think from now on we're going to start releasing episodes on Saturdays instead. But nothing's really going to change other than that.
Still the same quality content.
Still the same quality content.
And
however,
it's content.
if you do have any suggestions for changes or that, let us know. So we'll give out the internets. Our email address is firstplayertoken@gmail.com. It's FIRST player token. We are on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. That's at 1ST player token.
That's onceplayertoken.com.
Thank you, Euan. All our episodes are on SoundCloud, and you can subscribe to us on iTunes. We have a YouTube channel. Our website still exists, but again, there's not much on it. I have done a little bit of work, but I've not published the pages yet, because it still needs some fine-tuning. But that's www.firstplayertoken.com. My Twitch username is Unnecessary Chris. I'm hopefully going to get back onto that once this cold clears up. We have a Discord, ask us for that. And we are part of the Podnose Network.
The leading, UK's leading entertainment podcast network. I've got that one just ready to go at any time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's still going strong, and you can now donate via Patreon and experience all the wonderful podcasts on there. And give us a like on there. You can like and comment individual tracks on there now. So it's a good way to.
It is another way of listening to your episodes. You can do it directly on the Podnose website.
Yeah, you can do, or you can download from there. Any of that is available. So do it.
Get it done. Okay, so that's us. We'll see you in probably about a week and a half now, actually, if we're doing a Saturday episode. So
we may be back sooner than normal.
We'll see you then. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Bye.